So let's kick this off. Welcome everybody to Monday Night Live. One of the things I love about Monday Night Live is an opportunity for people to engage with the speaker. So I'm going to invite people to chat with you, to ask questions, and to have a chance to interact with people that they normally wouldn't. And it's really cool that I get to travel the world, meet special people like yourself, and go, hey, why don't you come over, talk to these people? They're busy living their life, building their careers, trying to make a life worth living. And maybe you can give them a glimpse at something that they wouldn't normally have thought of. So you, in my world, and correct me if I'm wrong, had two kind of major parts of your life. One was around health and helping a lot of millionaires and billionaires even change their physical reality. And then you decided, after having not traveled at all, to travel in so many countries in a short period of time. So let's give people a snapshot of Skip 25 months ago in his past, and then let's talk about what you created since I met you.
Yep. So in the past, I had ruptured 5 discs in my lower back when I was 18 years old in a soccer accident, or football for non-Americans. And when I did that, it took about 3 months for me to find out how bad the situation really was. And essentially they told me I needed to get spinal fusion. And with the technology at that current time, it would have meant that by the age of 58, I would have been fused from my neck all the way down to my sacrum and had no rotation ability in my back. And so it was, to me, it sounded like a death sentence. And I spent 3 years healing that. And along that process, I started to help people who had less intense injuries, help alleviate the pain or the symptoms of their less intense injuries. And then eventually I found this one technique that really transformed my whole life. It was called Greg Roscoff's muscle activation techniques. It was very Western medicine. And I committed as hard as I possibly could to everything that they were teaching. I did a 10-month internship program. I did a master's program, and then I got invited to their RX, like very, very intense program. And along that journey, I took a bunch of neuroscience courses, and I ended up getting really well known because after hearing that my situation had no hope, I decided to help other people that felt like they had no hope. And I just consistently was surprised by the body's ability to heal and recover without anything like energy work, with nothing like that. It was very, very Western. And interestingly enough, right, in the last 2 years, being so into the Mind Valley crowd, I've learned so much more about the other side, and seeing like how much that can also add to all the Western stuff that I had been doing. And this, as simple as something like meditation and mindfulness, that was not something that was talked about in the physical therapy realm that I was functioning in. And so along that journey, I realized I just didn't want to work with the pro athletes anymore. These guys would be 250, 300 pounds of solid muscle, very high intensity, high pressure situations. And while I was really good at that, I decided to start biasing towards a lot of the CEOs that were reaching out to me, which ended up getting me passed around, like Rock was saying, the millionaire and billionaire families of Southern California. And I ended up working with people in places like Hong Kong and just kind of all over the world to help them with different injuries. But at the same time, when I was doing that, there were those days where my body was just fatigued. Like I felt beat up. It was really challenging. And I just was always sort of looking for a way to use less of my own energy so I could help people. And I started to make videos about it. I started trying to teach people how to do your own rehab, your own prehab. And the videos were terrible. They were absolutely terrible. Whoa. Okay.
Is that you or me?
You hear me, Rock? Cool.
Is that you or me, Skip?
I think it was me. I think some YouTube music started playing in the background, which is the next story I'm going to get into, right? So I started making these videos terrible. Like my family wouldn't even watch these videos. They were so bad. But I knew it was like the highest level of education content in the space of like physical therapy out there. But no one would watch it because they were really boring. And so I decided to go on this journey of learning how to make video more entertaining, because while I could help someone one-on-one, I wanted to be able to help millions of people at a time with the same information, because I knew the stuff I was teaching these billionaires, anyone could learn and benefit from. And so I just went through this whole process of learning how to do that. And along that journey, I went to Mind Valley. And when I went to Mind Valley, I just committed really hard to producing content full time to help people that were doing amazing things in the world, like I was trying to do with the physical therapy content. And in that process, I just found out I loved making videos and making content more than I liked the physical therapy stuff. And as I got more successful,
Skip, let me stop you right there, because you're creating a trail of breadcrumbs that I want people to maybe just stop and appreciate, is because so many people struggle with, what's my purpose, right? They're like struggling, and they're like, I can't be happy until I know what my purpose is. But it appears to me that your purpose revealed itself as you continued to pour yourself into where you were. You gave 100%, and then something else revealed it. Is that fair to say?
I have a whole process for this that's really easy.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
In every category of your life, if we want to talk about purpose,
yeah,
most of the time we have like these different ladder steps that we go up.
Okay.
Pain is where a lot of people are. This is when you talk to someone at the gas station or the grocery store, and you go up and you say, like, how's your day? And they're like, it's kind of shit. Or they're just not in a good place, and they're in a place of pain with their career. And you're like, oh, why is it so bad? And they're like, I'm just bored, or I'm stressed out, or whatever. They're in a place of pain. And usually in the first conversation I have with them, I try to help them get to a place of peace, which isn't about changing what you're doing. It's about how you're thinking of it. And so pain goes to peace. So it's just trying to figure out, like, how can you change your perspective on something?
Yes.
Not necessarily what you're doing. Once you're at a place of peace, I tell people, now you need to play. So for me, it was like, I knew I was doing something that was good for the world, and I knew people would compensate me well for it in the physical therapy realm, but I wasn't having a ton of fun. And yes, it was contributing to the world in a wider way, but very small scale, one at a time, right? So I wanted to fill those other two buckets, contribute at a higher level, and make sure that I was having fun doing it. And so I started to play with a lot of things. I became a hip hop dancer. I was an amateur MMA fighter. I made some videos, and of all those things, I was just playing, right? And with the videos, I was like, wow, I really had a lot of fun. So I'm going to try to get better at it. When you try to get better at the thing, I call that progress. You're just like, let me get a little more strategic about this thing that I'm playing with, and see what it's like to do it at a higher level. And that's when I went to like Barcelona, and I started really committing to, like, I'm going to make these videos much better now. And I'm going to do it in a way that's going to contribute to the world. Let me not try to build, this is a huge point. Let me not try to build something myself. Let me find someone like M1 who's doing something amazing, and let me contribute to that thing. I think a lot of us think it needs to be our show, where I'm more like, why don't you find someone who's got an incredible show and contribute your highest skills to that show? So for me,
awesome.
The thing that was super fun to do and contribute to someone who's making a great product.
So just pause there again, because I want people to capture this, because you're giving such great content. How did you discover Mind Valley? Because you and I ended up there, and I ended up through Facebook watching what you were doing. And I remember saying to myself, this guy has something special. He's not your ordinary person. He's just adding value to the world. So tell them a little bit the background for that, because you didn't have a mandate. You weren't hired. You just showed up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So explain that, because I'm a big believer that leaders show up and add value. And if you're passionate about what you do, that's all you need to do. And eventually people go, we can't live without that oxygen of what that person brings. And then you find your space, not effortlessly, but kind of.
Yeah. So two things. Are you familiar with the term ikigai?
No.
So ikigai is an intersection of four things. There's another. I love whiteboards. Can you tell?
Yes, I love them too.
So imagine this is what it looks like when you draw it out.
Okay.
It's like a Venn diagram, but there's
Right.
four components.
Yeah.
And in the center, all four of those meet, right?
Yes.
So over here is basically you can get paid for the thing. Here is people need it. Like it actually helps the world. So for instance, at Mind Valley, I was like, I wasn't concerned about the paid thing. Like you said, I just kind of showed up because I was making passive income. I remember when I first went to university in Barcelona, I wasn't sure if my passive income strategy was going to work. So it was an experiment. Like you said, I had never left the country before, so I was really scared. But from that point forward, I ended up making like for the rest of that year, I think about 10 to 12,000 US dollars a month without working at all.
Just doing what you loved, which was videotaping.
That I wasn't getting paid for that. I didn't even.
You're talking about your passive income from previous decisions.
From previous ventures and stuff.
Okay.
So what I did was I tried to figure out how could I get paid to study. And to do that, I was like, how can I leverage my other skills in a way that it will essentially pay for my own education? And this is a big point because when you start a new career, you start a new passion or fulfillment. I feel like someone in the M1 tribe can talk a lot about this. Chris Crawford, if you guys know him, he's fantastic. And we've talked about this a lot. Essentially, I didn't want to have to take little jobs. I wanted to contribute at the highest level possible without rules. And so even today, when I go to Mind Valley stuff, I still do not take money for it because I don't want to have to listen to any sort of political or bureaucratic decision making. I'm like, I'm making this for me. And now that I've figured out this whole passive income thing, I'm like, I really don't have to take work for anyone. So I can I say like I'm either free or very expensive. And there's no gray area because if I'm going to take money, I'm going to make sure that it's going to be the best product ever. Like at this point, I've said yes to 2 documentaries right now, and they're both 6-figure projects. Everything else, I'm either helping people that I think are doing great work in the world, or I'm making it for myself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm interested for the last P.
Yeah. So, So for this one,
or the other one, go for either one, man. I want them both. Can't leave me hanging, man.
So pain to peace, peace to play. So playing with things. Yeah. It's essentially, it looks kind of like this, where when you're first starting out, this is your pain. It's like everything. And then when you start to go to peace, there's a few less things. And then when you go to play, there's less things, but there's still more than down here. You go to progress, you can't do too many things at a high level, right? At the same time. So progress, it's starting to funnel down. And then from progress comes to that top level, which I call fulfillment. So it's actually not a P.
Okay.
And fulfillment. Are you guys ready for this? I have a new brand coming out. Are you ready for this word?
Okay.
Fulfillionaire.
I love it, man.
And so when I'm working to help people understand, there's a whole video series coming out about all these on my YouTube, which is going to be called Fulfillionaire. And it's going through pain and describing each of the categories of life and how to get from pain to peace. And then from peace to play. And I'm going to describe like how to do these things, leading you towards fulfillment in life.
When you say the categories, are you talking about the 12 categories in Life Book?
I'm not going to use all 12 because some of them I think are redundant. Yeah. For the purposes of the videos. This is so I'm watching all the comments. This is hilarious. I love it. Jason Goldberg also recommended fulfillment with a PH, which I thought was cool.
Okay.
So then the Ikigai concept. So what you can get paid for, what the world actually needs that will contribute to them, what you enjoy is over here in this third category. And then, you can get paid for it, people need it, what you enjoy, and you're actually talented or you're good at it. So I know we've all had things where it's like, for instance, in my previous job, it was helping the world, right? I was getting paid for it. I didn't necessarily like enjoy the whole part of the process. It took a lot out of me, right? And so I was trying to figure out like, how can I get all the categories? And for the first time, a couple realizations happened in Croatia that I think are really beautiful, that if any of you are doing, getting your real estate up there, getting your passive income so that you can start to do these things that you really love, such an important moment. Me doing this video journey, I gave up estimating between $2 and $4 million of personal income to pursue video. So like if I contributed the same amount of time, yeah, Ikigai, I love it over here. Ikigai. So if I contributed the same amount of time doing the businesses that I'm really good at, that people pay for, and yes, the world needs it, but maybe not as much, but I didn't enjoy it as much, I would have made more money. And there was a huge moment on stage this year in Croatia at university, 1,000 people in this giant theater, where I made a closing ceremony video. And after the video finished, Vishen just yelled out and asked me to come up on stage. And all 1,000 of these people just started screaming when I got on stage and freaking out. And it was this moment, it was about 30 seconds of just intense like applause and cheering from this video. And it was the first moment where it made the understanding of losing those $2 to $4 million in income worth it. Where I've been building and building and building this skill set, knowing that it made me happier. And so there's this huge quote I love dropping recently, which is, if you didn't enjoy failing, success will only make it worse.
Nice.
So if you're doing a business or you're creating something where not making the money or not being as successful as you want to be or not getting the recognition that you want, if doing it doesn't make you happy by itself without all of those other things, success is a trap in that type of thing. So you'll get trapped in this hamster wheel of doing the thing that you didn't love in the beginning. And so I always heard this concept, but it's so much easier to understand, I believe, when you say it like that, where it's like, if you enjoy failing at it, you will love success.
Yeah. And it makes me think of the people that are most successful in sports. They talk about the fact that they love to practice. And really what they're saying is essentially what you're saying is, I don't mind failing and shooting and shooting and shooting and missing, but learning what makes me better, paying attention, getting the feedback, getting coaching, all of that process. I'm getting to hone my craft. And then in the moment, if I succeed or fail, I still love it because I'm in the arena, right?
Absolutely. I wrote down your quote in the chat, I love the practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always said that I think that had I had a father or mother that encouraged me to get into sports and said, I believe you could do it, I would have been a great athlete, because I've always said, I love to practice. And I interviewed a Olympic athlete that held the backstroke gold medal record for 9 years, and Chris Rouse. And he said that after 45 minutes of interviewing him, I was trying to boil it down to the nectar of what made this guy like the guy he is, you know. And I got him to sum it up in one sentence. And he said, Rock, I fell in love with repetition. And for most people, repetition is boredom. It's nauseum. It's like, oh, are you serious? I'm going to do that again. But for the consummate person, to your point, that loves what they do, repetition equals mastery. It's finding the distinction that other people didn't find.
Mm-hmm. So I love this concept. I have another beautiful thing with this. So back when I did the physical therapy, and now when I do videos as well, when I first achieved what I thought was like mastery over the physical therapy thing, I was like, it's basically if someone comes in with the same type of injury, no matter how extreme it is, but let's say someone comes in with a ruptured disc in their spine, I would be like, every time I'd see this same ruptured disc, it would actually end up being the same solution for every single person. And so what I realized was over time, no matter what injury you had, it was the same solution. Any injury you had the same solution, which is when I was like, oh, I need to teach people like why I believe that. and what the reality of like the biomechanics of the body is. Like you still need to just take care of it all, and here's why, and I can break, and that's what the whole prehab dojo thing breaks down. But what I realized as a higher level of mastery, maybe, and I'm sure there's many levels, but essentially I boiled it down to, given the same set of circumstances in the same situation, you'll make the same solution every time. And then at some point, I hit a level where I was like, oh, that's actually not true anymore. Given the same set of circumstances, I will play with new solutions every time. Meaning, like, I'm having fun with the solution rather than repeating the thing I know works. So I think there's levels of that mastery, right? So what you're talking about now is like, it's like you can do the 3-pointer again and again and again, but every time you'll just tweak it slightly and keep searching for a better way. And I think when you find something where that's like you're like, you love that, that's fulfillment.
100%. So here's another metaphor for you, is that many people in life think that the way to success is to climb the steepest part of the mountain right up to the top rapidly. When reality is, success is really about going around the outside of the mountain on that slope that gently goes up. And every time you get to the same 360 degrees, you're at a different vantage point. You see it a little bit differently. You've accumulated some wisdom along the way, and now you can make a new decision. And you slowly, continually circle around the mountain. And maybe there's never an end, Skip. Maybe we don't know, but you keep on going higher and higher. And if you've read any David Goggins or anything like that, you know that there's an endless possibility in what the brain can do to overcome the physical limitations that most people set on themselves. In fact, most people, their bar is so freaking low, it's in the ground. They're like, oh, I got a little bobo. I get a headache. I can't function. Oh no, I got indigestion. But really the journey that we're on with M1 is about, how do you create a increased level of awareness by being around people like yourself that have gone deep into some part of life. And then we can borrow your wisdom, your experience, and go, wow, okay, so hold on a second here. In 25 months, he decided to travel. He decided to do something that he loved. He found a way to do it and survive. Yes, he had created some passive income. Maybe that's a hint. I should know how to create some passive income so I have freedom to do what I love, which is what we teach, by the way. And then you have, in 25 months with Mind Valley, you're an icon in that arena now. And if you chose to, I'm sure the opportunities from the 1,000 people that are there, you could probably work for the rest of your life and never be unemployed in the arena of videotaping. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
And make a very good living and do something you're passionate about.
Yep.
However, you had to risk it for the biscuit, and you had to take a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and go all in with no guarantees, right? And then see what would happen. Mm-hmm. And I think it's such a great example, a metaphor for life. And for those of you that don't know, Skip came out to Mexico 18 months ago. Him and I met in Barcelona. I was invited out there after doing a Mind Valley event and volunteered to come out there and speak to people about wealth creation. Had a great talk. We kind of were brothers from a different mother, but we just kind of like looked at each other, and that the kind of the man nod, you're like, yo, yeah, man, I get you, dude. You're cool, right? And we connected, and then somehow you decided to just come to the event and do what Skip does, and which I'm going to invite all of you to do, is add fucking value. You slept an average of probably 3 or 4 hours a night. Everybody you spoke to, you asked poignant questions, you listened. And everybody I talked to just loved the fact that you were there. You were a highlight of the event. You fit in. You created videos that will last forever. So, and we did that amazing, what do you call that?
Challenge, yeah.
Yeah. Which is legendary now. So it's for me, and for those of you, please ask questions of Skip. I saw you and I saw a light in you, and I said, because I consider myself someone who tries to gather people that are light, people that are bright, people that are on this journey. And you jumped at it and you created so much value. And now since then, I mean, where are you at now? Tell us a little bit about where you're going.
Yeah. So this is going to sound heavy, but over the course of the last 45 days, and again, this just goes back to, if you follow those steps and you're at something that's truly fulfilling, or like that ikigai concept, who believed in you to help you take such an amazing, to answer that question, because it kind of filters into this a little bit. Britt just asked who believed in me that helped me take that leap of faith to create that life. My family, my mom and like my dad, since I would say like the day I was born, they were divorced at a very young age. They didn't talk. I was raised with my dad and my brother. As an example, like my dad, my brother and I slept in the same bed for a couple years at one point, just because of his financial situation. And my mom had my brother and I go with our dad when they divorced, because she didn't know if he would make it if we didn't go with him. Wow. Like psychologically, emotionally. And so that's a whole nother backstory. Yeah. But my whole life growing up, I basically raised myself. My dad was a video gamer. And so there wasn't really like parenting, so to speak, in a lot of ways. Like he never came to anything and all that, which I loved. It made me very independent, very strong, good relationship now. But along that journey, my family never, ever once, no matter how crazy my dream or my goal was, they would just be like, oh, of course you would do that. Of course. Right. And then I would achieve. And they would always just be like, yep, makes sense. Yeah. I would like win everything. Like I was the #1 in Texas for percussion in high school. Like I almost failed high school, but they auditioned for the valedictorian speech. And I beat out all of the smart kids in the school. There's 1,000 people that graduated with us, right? And so all these achievements, my family was always just like, yeah, that makes sense that you would get that or do that. There was never like necessarily like a congratulations moment. And so I think because of the way that was, I've always just been like, yeah, if you just keep doing the thing and you really want the thing, you'll get the thing. And so I took the leap of faith knowing that the worst case scenario is that I would go back to working with billionaires and helping people with injuries. And I knew that I could do that. And then a worst case scenario beyond that was I was a speaker for youth leadership all across America for a couple years. And so there was just a lot of, let's just say like fail safe things that I loved to do if this didn't work out.
So where are you going now?
So within the last 45 days, I got asked to go and create some videos with the Saudi royal family, specifically the Crown Prince, to start doing stuff with women's rights in like the Middle East. I got asked to go and do videos with the future Prime Minister of India. I got asked and verbally agreed to do a docuseries with Oprah, Tony Robbins, the Dalai Lama, Kevin Hart, The Rock.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Joe Dispenza. We're going to be doing a documentary. So
how did all these people discover you?
Just like word of mouth, seeing a lot of stuff from me. Most of the time, the thing that I get is the way that the videos make people feel.
Yes.
And like I said about the mastery thing, it's definitely, this journey with video has been, again, like I said before, I've played with a lot of things in life. I've done a lot of different careers, but I've kept searching until I found something that just felt like this. And again, that moment on stage was when it really clicked. And that was only like 2 weeks ago, where I was like, I cannot believe that people love it this much. There's also another moment actually at Cabo at M1 when I made the little mini documentary with you. And at the very end of it, when the screen went black, someone got really upset and they were like, "That's not the end, is it?" And when that happened, that was another one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, it's interesting that I love doing this. Like,
Yes.
I would have done this regardless, right? Like, I would do this without money, which I have done for so many videos.
Mm-hmm.
And people love it that much that it's like it just blew my mind that I could be doing this and that people would put that much value in it. And now to see like these crazy people wanting me to do this work, I'm just like, wow, like just mind blowing that I had to search through 10 or 12 careers to find something at this caliber that these types of things can happen. It's amazing, right?
I'm so glad you say that, because I think, again, to this purpose thing is people, I look at, I've driven taxis, I worked in restaurants, I was in the airlines, I did real estate, and I was passionate about a lot of them. But it was really about 6 years ago when I found the whole mastermind concept and started Go Abundance and got into M1 that I really felt like I was aligned with my purpose. And people are like, "Oh, your purpose." No, I didn't know my purpose. I was purposeful. I was intentional. I showed up and gave 100%, whether it was sweeping floors or washing toilets or painting fences. I brought all of me to that so that at the next thing, all of me would show up. And that's the part that I think I saw in you in Barcelona, even though I didn't know who you were. I remember the videos, like you were at an apartment or you were at an Airbnb or something, and you were just videotaping. And I'm like, who is that? There's something there, that intangible. And as everybody's listening to this, I want to entice you and encourage you to continue to pursue whatever it is that beckons you. And it might take you 25 months like Skip. It might take you 25 years. But man, you got to go for it. And something will reveal itself and something great will happen. And wow. Somebody wrote in the comments, like, the only person that's missing that you need to videotape is God.
It was crazy. So I do this thing. This is actually a good hack for you guys, maybe. I do this thing, and I started earlier this year where I took my like life book categories as a structure to work.
They
this
don't
off.
know what that is, so call it life design, which some people have experienced. It's a similar thing, but
Yep.
But basically, yes, it's taking a part of your life, let's say the 8 gardens, and drilling in deep and creating an identity around it.
The gardens would actually be fantastic for this.
Yeah.
So any system you want to use, the gardens, the life book, you can just Google all these things. And I started to write out, like, in extreme detail, which I know you guys do, the goals within that. But I wrote it as almost like a journal entry. And then what I do is I record my voice saying all these things, and then I put music behind it, and I create like a little hypnosis track that I listen to every day. And when I first started it, I listened to it in the morning and I listened to it in the evening. And I kid you not, I was walking in Croatia a couple weeks after meeting with this team in Switzerland that pitched me on some of these projects. And I was listening to it and I just started laughing hysterically, because in it, I mentioned working with the Dalai Lama, Tony Robbins, Oprah. And I was like, it all just happened. And it happened in like 5 months. No, I made it in April. The most recent one I made in April, and I got pitched that in June.
The mind is so powerful, and our own self-doubt about employing the mind and the statements to ourselves is what holds us back. So I want to thank you for reminding us of what's possible. So again, people, if you have any questions, we've seen some beautiful statements here. You're free to connect and ask Skip whatever you want so that you can have direct contact with these successful people. It's one of the big reasons we do Monday Night Live is we could do a podcast with Skip, but then you wouldn't be able to interact with him. So in the 25 months that I've known you, I met your brother. Is he still working with you?
Yep, he does.
Okay. and you're in Santa Monica right now. What of all the opportunities you have, what are you going to choose?
So I have this thing that I do that I call hardicizing. So a lot of people do visualizing. I call it hardicizing because I believe that like we always know the answers to whatever we're trying to get, answers to, and we go and ask other people about these things to get perspectives. But I think like deep down we always know. Like if it's the right relationship, like deep down right? If it's the right career choice, like deep down and it's always so funny because in hindsight we're always like, oh, I knew that, but you didn't listen to that feeling, right? Yeah, Steph, hardicizing. How do you dream big and create compelling vision? Yeah. So I also think, like Rock mentioned earlier, I loved when you told the story about like the janitor and all that stuff. It's not so much about what you're doing, it's about how you're doing those things. Like, are you showing up? Because you can only like figure out if you're going to love the thing if you're committed to the thing. And so like it's all about like go all in, be unstoppable. But if you realize that it's not the right thing at some point, be quick to pivot. So I always say like strong beliefs loosely held. Very, very important. Like I'm super committed, but if at any point I start to feel that there's some other thing I'm more excited about, I'm quick to like move and try that new thing because like you said, it can take 25 months or it can take 25 years. One of the most incredible things I've learned from like the billionaires and from people like Vision, from people like you, is the number one secret that I've seen to success is of course ambition. So like dreaming big, but number two is how fast you can receive criticism from other people and from yourself and apply it. How fast do you turn the dime and start like changing the things that you need to change? And the people that do that really quickly are successful.
So in M1, they get a lesson every Monday. And at the end of that lesson, I say that, one of the things that's going to determine your success is your ability to course correct rapidly. And that comes from feedback or information. And information is simply the ability to make a new decision. So as you're experiencing life coming at you, the most successful people are constantly pivoting, course correcting, making new decisions. They're not stagnant. They're open. They're flexible. They're adaptable. He who's most willing to adapt is going to survive. So it's all in that realm. So I agree 100% with you. The challenge is that most people are like, no, I want certainty. I want to go 9 to 5 and know I'm going to be okay, park in that spot and have my donut at 10:30, my lunch at 12:30, blah, blah, blah. But it's that flexibility, that mobility that keeps you young and keeps you in a place where you can grow and experience things new. I think we have another question here. Skip, Did you read it?
Yep. So I love it because it's all kind of stacking into this question. It's all in the same category. So it's how have you trained your mind and heart to communicate with one another? So I've got 2 priorities in life. If you guys ever see on Instagram, I do Insta stories like constantly, which are little bite-sized nuggets and things like that I put in there. The first priority, I believe in everyone's life, is your own fulfillment and happiness. If you're waking up, and I always say this thing like scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing? And I say 10 is living all of your dreams, 7 is good, 5 is neutral. There's 2 answers. There's one answer that's how do you actually feel right now? And there's one answer that I call your meta. Your meta is like, what's your consciousness answer? Not how you feel physically, not how you feel emotionally, not even what you're thinking about, but like in the grand scheme of life, like how do you feel about this life thing? And for me, it's always a 10, this meta thing. I'm like, if I chose to do anything today, I'm a 10 because I'm choosing life over anything else, right? And so as a piece of that, number 1 is my own fulfillment and happiness because it's the most important thing. If I'm going to do this life thing, I want to be happy. So I always start my day at a 10. I stay at a 10 as long as I do what I think I should do for myself, for my own happiness and fulfillment. So as an example, like when I was walking on the street earlier, there was a McDonald's bag on the road. I picked it up and threw it in the nearest trash can. It wasn't my bag, right? But that right there is like, I knew walking past it, if I didn't do that, I would be less happy. And so because I did that, I'm like, oh, that adds to my fulfillment today, right? Right now. The number two priority is your health. If you don't have your health, it's very, very hard to be there for your family, to be there for your career, to do all these things that Rock and I are talking about, where all these amazing habits and beliefs, you need to be clear. You need to be able to be focused. You need to treat your body well physically, eat the right things, right? And so it's the 80-20, right? Eat vegetables. If you want to go vegan, go vegan. If you don't, like, eat good quality meats, right? These are all very important things, but it's simple. It's not, you don't have to like worry about like how much broccoli should you eat. But if you want your mind and your heart to be connected, you need to have your health and you need to have fulfillment in your life. And again, fulfillment is not about necessarily doing the thing that you love. It's about doing everything you do with love.
It's a little bit what you said before about do everything all in, be committed, live with passion, as Tony would say. And when you do that, beautiful things happen. I watch so many people walk around as though they're pre-discouraged about what's about to happen. And you can tell so much from somebody's physiology. They walk in a room. Are they anticipating that something wonderful and playful might happen? Or are they trying to hide and protect themselves from what could happen? There's a bunch of other questions here. Did you answer this one? How have you trained your mind and heart to communicate with one another? And how do you discern between the messages of the two?
So this heart thing is really, really important, this hearticizing thing, and like that you always know the answer in your heart. That's an honesty with yourself thing. It's also a vulnerability thing. Like, are you willing to listen to what you actually feel? And like, do you take any time every day to listen? Not to the chatter and the logical, like this makes sense answer, but this is what you feel answer. And so someone asked way earlier too, like, how do you dream big and create your compelling vision, from Matt Burton? You always know. I have a firm belief that you know what you want to be doing with your life. You just may not know the steps to getting there yet. But I think getting really clear and opening up to people, especially your close family, and saying like, this is what I actually want to create. So for me, I had this beautiful vision. Actually, Jay Shetty on stage said this one thing that really stuck with me, that I decided to adopt. And I'm going to massacre this quote, but this is what I've adopted for my life mission for the next few years, which is, I want to wage peace as effectively and strategically as if I were waging war. And that means a lot of things to me. It calls out to my masculine side. I have a very like masculine core. And so the idea of waging peace really, it creates a certain emotion in me that I really enjoy. And effectively and strategically, meaning it's not just about creating beautiful things in the world, but it's about doing it in a strategic way that truly makes an impact. And so going into my future, I hearticized this whole thing actually on the plane from Pula, Croatia to London, leaving university. And I did this workshop called Inspiring the World Through Media. And it was for business owners, influencers, anyone that uses content to make an impact in the world. And I started to realize, like, what was the golden thing? Like, what was I invaluable for? It wasn't for pressing record, and it wasn't for editing content. What's invaluable, I think, that I carry is the knowledge of how to make content that really lasts forever, potentially, and leaves an impact on the people that watch it or consume it, whether it's photography with captions, whether it's a video, any of that stuff. Make wisdom go viral. Yeah. And so I just decided that I wanted to create some sort of consultancy, something where I could help people do their content strategy, but not just like the titles, but really the details of like, how do you find a video person, and then how do you coach that video person or the team, right? And create this thing. So I'm still figuring out exactly what that's going to look like, but that's going to be the future of how do I work with people on mapping out their content so that it really lasts. It's not just filling the content calendar, but it's content that's really meaningful, that stacks on itself, that, it's like the piece, pain to peace to play to progress to fulfillment. And it all is in this beautiful mental model that whole thing is going to take me a year to build out the content on that. But every piece of content will add on to itself. It seems like you've had a charmed career path. What have been some big challenges and how'd you get back up? Imposter syndrome was a huge challenge. And I think in every career I've chosen, there was initial imposter syndrome, which doesn't necessarily ever go away, right? There's going to be days where you're just like, am I really cut out for this? And you have to prove it to yourself.
So explain that a little bit, because I'm not sure everybody understands that. I interpret that, and tell me what your opinion is a little bit of, am I worthy of the greatness that I'm creating right now, and can I sustain it?
Yeah, exactly. Imposter syndrome is just this feeling of like, maybe you've had success in the past, or maybe you've had several things that did really well, but then every time you start something new, I think there's a healthy level of humility that factors into imposter syndrome, where it's like, can I elevate that level of mastery again? Can I elevate it again? Can I elevate it again? Am I good enough to do that? And the questions that go through your head of like, am I really enough to do this again? And I think I'm going to pull out the whiteboard again.
Well, the whole question around am I enough, it plagues all of us for our entire life. And a big part of this whole experience in M1 is about getting people to fall back in love with themselves and accept themselves for who they are. And then from there, find the tribe that they belong in and hopefully live a purposeful life. And when you kind of transcend through those three areas, you become lovable.
100%. And I hope at some level, right, hopefully everyone in M1 understands that you're always enough, right?
Yeah.
And like one of the sayings I always have is, we're floating on a rock in space, probably in a computer simulation. So like, who's ever not enough? Like, it's impossible to not be enough in that sense. Like, right. It's sort of arbitrary. So just have fun. And so this is something I think about regularly, where it's like, here down below this, we have you're born, your birth, right? And then you set your first goal and you achieve that goal and you realize it wasn't really what it was cracked up to be. So you set a new goal and you achieve that goal. It's not really what it's cracked up to be.
Move the goalposts, man. Come on.
And then the goal, and then you die. And you do that just 1,000 times. And once you come to terms with that is life, you can fall in love with that journey, right? The moment where I say, like, for the next decade of my life, it might be doing this whole thing of making wisdom go viral. I think the overarching picture for me is going to be the whole really waging peace thing, because that's everything. But how you wage peace can change so dramatically as the love of what you're doing changes, right? So, like, Rock, how many careers have you had?
I don't know, 50. A lot of different careers. I mean, a lot.
And I hope everyone here has done that and played in that way, right? Where you can try all these different things.
Yeah. So how old are you now?
I am 29.
29. And financially, do you feel like have you created enough passive income that you can live and still pursue what you want to do now freely? And
more. Absolutely.
Yep. So now you're in a place at this age where, so maybe just back up a tiny little bit, or maybe go forward, either one, choose whichever one. How did you get to 27 and have created financial freedom? And how do you create the success, as you talked about at Mind Valley, through media and marketing? Because a lot of people want to do that. It's so trendy today to go, oh, I've got some content. I got a story. I want to tell people how to, take care of their pets while they travel and make $29 a month doing that, or what have you. But they don't have the confidence or the know-how, because you spoke about that a little bit. Can you expand on that maybe?
Yep. So the first question was about the passive income, and the second question was about creating media and how do you do that for real? Right?
Yeah.
So for the first question, Srikumar Rao had a seminar at Mind Valley U this year, and he's done stuff before too. And he said this really interesting thing that I know I'm actually really excited to talk about this with the M1 crowd, because you'll all relate to this. He said that there was a direct correlation, people who made $500,000 US income per year to people that made $1.5 million income per year. The people who made $1.5 million felt significantly higher levels of financial lack than the people who made 500,000. Now, the way that he said this implied that that was a bad thing. I disagree. I think that the reason the people that were making $1.5 million a year were doing that is because they decided to make that feel like lack. And so you you fall to the level of your standards, not rise to the level of your expectations, right? And so when this passive income thing kicked in, I had been training and working with all these billionaires, right? So at one point, like when I made my first like $10,000 a month without working for it while I was doing other stuff as well for like active income, I remember feeling an intense feeling of guilt. I think 26 years old probably, when that first 10K without working came in. And I just remember thinking, like, if I feel guilty about this, think about like my mentor, who makes $200 million a year, right? And I'm like, what does he feel like? Like, there's no way he feels guilty about that. So if I feel guilty about 10,000, like, I need to break down this barrier. Like it's going to stop me from helping the world. It's going to stop me from contributing in greater ways. It's going to stop me from being able to host these amazing retreats that I now do. And you have to drop like $10, $20, $30,000 regularly to make these things work, right? As you know, with hosting events and stuff. So, it was like this amazing realization. And so to create that, I really just decided that I needed to put that financial pressure on myself to make it happen. And if I didn't put that pressure, I was never going to force myself to level up. And so people function differently, right? I know this great guy who came up with this model where there's 3 ways that you can like have growth: support, encouragement, or challenge. You guys have ever heard of that? And I function really well with challenge. And I think as a healthy adult, it's good to get to a point where you can function really well with challenge. And so I just decided to challenge myself. And so when I started going traveling and I started doing these things, I was like, well, I need to make this level of income regularly to keep my investments growing and to also sustain my lifestyle, pay for my house back home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And go figure, as I traveled, the passive income grew to match that, to match the level of expectations I had set. Not like the level of what I wanted, but the level of like, oh, I started pretending that $10,000 a month was zero. And I tried to believe that as much as possible. And so I was like, okay, I need to make this much above that, right? And so that, I think, was the secret, is like forcing myself to need this and then making sure my mind believed that that's what I really needed. And then it happened, right?
Yes.
So that's the passive income question. I also leveraged like a lot of skill sets. So I had been in the biomedical industry. I got really lucky, right? Opportunity meets preparation with some things. And then just committed. I put my head down for a year in this one company and built it so that it could run completely without me, which is like a whole nother 7-hour interview about the steps and tools and strategies, right? But yeah, I built it with the idea that I could potentially go and live on a mountain and make tons of money while I was doing that.
So let's talk about the future now. And if people want to get in contact with you, if they want to follow you and all kind of that good stuff, because you're just a cool dude, man.
Yeah. So contact with me, like Facebook is the best way if you need to message and you have questions and stuff. Obviously for anyone in M1, like I'll answer questions all day. I love you guys. YouTube is where all the Fulfillionaire stuff is coming out, a lot of this education. The big thing is that it's going to be insanely entertaining. So if you guys want to see any of these stories, like all the M1 Cabo stuff is up on the Skip Kelly YouTube, and there's just so much good content that you can consume that I always throw in these bite-sized wisdoms and stuff. The new content is going to be more wisdom, but still super entertaining.
How was your did you get to interact with Jay Shetty at all? I think he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I could say a lot about that. We actually accidentally sat next to each other on a plane, and that's how we met.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. As like benefits of getting the premium class, you accidentally sit next to Jay Shetty.
Right.
And it was funny because we were going to meet each other like a week later. But we just happened to be traveling to the same place at the same time. And I was like, oh, we're going to meet soon. And he had already heard about me too. And then as it turns out, his videographer, accidentally. His videographer and I are great friends now, and we collaborate and all that stuff. So Jay may or may not be involved in one of these docuseries that I'm getting ready to work on. Obviously, we've collaborated a lot now. Because he's so involved with Mind Valley and things like that, and a bunch of other incredible people. What was the other part of that question? Was there another part, or was that it?
Just more about, he's obviously kind of, had a splash on social media in the last couple of years. And I guess
he's been building the skill set for that for 9 years before he started.
Thank you. People are like, oh, I'm going to build my presence and my know-how in 3 months. And they'll wonder why it doesn't happen. And I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and they go, but Jay Shetty is just like, he came out of nowhere. I go, my guess is he's put at least 5 years into, building his mindset, his platform, his connections, his team, his content. And so 9 makes a lot more sense.
9 years. And a huge caveat I want to tell everyone, being in the creator world, I know a lot of people that do this that are hyper successful that are very unhappy. So again, if you don't enjoy failing at this, don't push harder.
Yeah.
So
that's really well said. Couple more questions. Who's your mentor?
Okay. I think he's okay with me saying, his name is Tushar. His name is Tushar Patel. He runs Tarsadia Investments. They have a real estate empire. If you've ever stayed at a Hard Rock hotel, they probably own it. If you've ever stayed at a Mandarin Oriental, there's a good chance they own it. He's got like 8 different companies outside of that. Some are in augmented reality, some are in pharmaceuticals, kind of the whole spectrum. And so he taught me a lot about what it's like to own things rather than run things.
Very nice, very nice. So we're at the top of the hour. Time has flown by. We could talk for a long time. Skip, I've just so enjoyed knowing you as a human and as a spirit and a soul. If people want to learn more from you, is there anything? Do you have any courses? Do you have any content? Do you have anything if they can learn from, or just get from your wisdom?
Yeah. So for the health background, I ended up turning that into a digital product so that when people had injuries and stuff, I used to feel really bad that I wasn't working with people one-on-one anymore because I'm the only one that does what I do. And so that's the prehabdojo.com. I'll put that in the chat. So if you guys have injuries and stuff, feel free to reach out to me. That's like a legacy thing where I love the filmmaking and I didn't want to spend one-on-one time with people anymore. So I created that as an avenue to still serve people without needing to be there. And I always add new content and I do it every day. So it's my little pet project that I love. The YouTube is the biggest thing right now. I'm going to be putting out a whole series on inspiring the world through media. It's just going to be free up on YouTube to help business owners get their message out. So I know a lot of us have incredible things that we're working on and building, but have no idea how to make it more strategic and make it more formulaic so it takes less time and has a bigger end result. And so I'm going to be putting out lots of content on that so that you can all benefit from it.
You are just a beautiful human being, my friend. Honored to know you. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your grace and your presence with us. And I miss you, man. I look forward to seeing you again, giving you a hug and just looking you in the eye and saying, yo, what's up? So, and you're going to be working with a lot of people that I respect and honor. Tony, of being a trainer for him for 17 years. And so I look forward to seeing what you create in that world. And thank you so much for dropping by with these beautiful souls that got to hear from you. I think they'll get a lot from it, and there's some really great comments. So God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you, Rock. Love you.
Love you too, man. Cheers. Good night.
See you guys.